Morgott, the Omen King.
Morgott, last of all kings.
He is the ruler of the capital in the basically in the storyline of Elden Ring when we get into the lands between. So he's a very, very interesting character. It just goes to show that his story and character is one of the few bright sides of Elden Ring and one of the more core story implications and also lore implications, but also in terms of mindset, identity, and the lessons we can learn from Elden Ring. Just as like all Godfrey children are, Godfrey's children is by far the pinnacle of a lot of Elden Ring stories and lessons you can learn. But Morgott. My personal opinion about Morgott is that he's a brilliant. I wish we got more of his story. I wish we got more of his character and be able to understand him. He's one of the main antagonists or main opponents. I wouldn't say antagonists, but he's one of the main opponents you will face in the game countless times. I believe you can have 3 fights with him total, and then even in the new Elden Ring Night Reign, he's in there as well. So it just goes to show that he's a prominent character when it comes to the Elden Ring franchise. And his name is iconic because, like I said, he plays a big part in our story, but also plays a big part into the lessons we can learn. And we're going to start with who Morgott is. Morgott, like I said, is the Omen King, last of all kings, ruler of Lendel, the royal capital. But he is also way more than that. He is one of the few characters that interact with majority of the story, unlike most characters. Unlike most characters, they usually fit into one category of the story, and then usually you meet them later on, or they're just part of that story. Whether that be the Star Surge conflict, or the rebellion of Ryu, Lucaria, and the Carians, or whether that be the March of Gold when they're marching into Liurnia during the Liurnia Wars. You kind of just have those events there, and people interact with those individual events. Now, there's some people who do interact with all of them, but those are the major characters, and Morgott is a major character, yes, but he interacts way more in the shadows than you think. What does these events got to do with Morgott? Not those events that I just stated, but what you got to really look at is what the whole system, the Golden Order, the Erdtree, and everything has to come in place. For example, he's an Omen. Let's get that out the door. He's an Omen, which means he was shunned, feared, and since he was royalty, blood royalty, the royalty, he was kept alive and, didn't have his horns cut off and stuff like that. But he was in the sewers. And if you played Elden Ring, the sewers sucks. The sewers are disastrous. But he was in the sewers. Not only that, he has been in many different huge events, such as both of the Siege of the Capital, such as the Alliance of the Sovereign Alliance when the Shattering happened. And that just goes to show how many events Morgott has been here for. He was probably there when the Ancient Dragons attacked the capital as well. So just many different events. He was in the shadows. He was there. Now, how he came into this role of being, in the shadows, an assassin, for lack of a better words, a commander of the Night Cavalry, we do not know. A lot of people theorize that Marika brought her son up, and let's talk about that for a quick minute. That he was born of Godfrey. He's the son of Godfrey, so that just goes to show his strength, but also that he's been around for a very, very long time. Guarantee you, he's been around for a couple eras of Erdtree. Whether that be way before when the Erdtree was not really a thing, because the Golden Order became it was the Golden Order when the Golden Order wasn't really a thing, because when the Golden Order became a thing through the plucking of the Rune of Death, basically the destined death, so all her children can be immortal, for lack of a better words. But that just goes to show that there's a lot of events that he's been a part of. And when he was brought up into be the commander of the Knights Cavalry, don't know. When Morgott, the Fell Omen King, which is his other persona, that it really does suck, I'm not gonna lie. Not his character or anything like that, but the name, like Morgott and Morgott, is really like, and he doesn't even change his outfit at all. So it's like, it's really weird. But I guess how it's played out is like, all these characters, for example, the ones that have like alternative personas and stuff like that, not like in terms of it being an Empyrean or whatever, but like being like identity, they usually have very little interaction with their main persona. So Morgott has less interactions than it does with Morgott, so people think Morgott is his own thing. But let's also talk about a few other events he's been part of and other achievements he has reached. For example, he was able to create the Sovereign Alliance. I'm pretty sure he was the head of this alliance, because when you get his introduction cutscene, I'll show it on screen now, he basically showcases that everybody, all this, all that, saying they're traitors or whatnot. So, but also that he was able to fight Radahn. What Radahn was this? Not sure. We can assume that this is a transitional period between the DLC Radahn to the Star Scourge Radahn, minus the rot for the Star Scourge Radahn, and minus the whole ritual Moog thing that was going on there, that he was able to use blood flame and stuff. So minus that, and plus that was more like an interpretation how Miquella saw him, but that's the best we can get of Radahn. So these two things overlap, so I think it's like right in the middle. I think it was before, I think it was after the Star Scourge, so after the Star Scourge, but he was still in his like early phases of the Shattering War, so I'm pretty sure he still kept some identity of what came before. So it's pretty insane that he was able to beat Radahn, or at least come to a standstill where Radahn had to retreat from the capital and take his losses and head back to Caelid. So it just goes to show that he is really, really prominent. And another thing he's proud of is that he hunt down many of the tarnished that seek lordship, that seek to become Elden Lord. So he has all these nice cavalry taking these people out. He goes as Morgott to kill all these tarnished and stop all these prominent champions. And keep in mind, he did this for the whole timeline. I'm pretty sure he did this for like majority of the Golden Order, not when he was just the ruler of the capital. I'm pretty sure he did that way before he was employed by his mom to do that, go kill them, seek them out. But keep in mind, many of these people were given runes and grace by Marika. And these grace, you know, you get the in-game items, the Marika grace, the Marika rune, all that stuff. And it's just crazy that Morgott was able to take him out. Obviously, he's the son of Godfrey and the son of Marika. So yeah, that's probably, it doesn't make, like, you know, like it's not that crazy. But it really is, because let's be honest here, these are seasoned warriors, you know. Seasoned warriors that would give us a challenge. Let's talk about a few things before we get into all the other things. I know this is very long, but you know, we have to get into the other few things. Morgott was treated very poorly by the Golden Order, but yet he's still very loyal to the Golden Order, and the Erdtree protects it with all his might, everything possible, for countless years and times. Who knows how long it's been. Another thing, a second, that is that he's a prominent son of Godfrey and Marika, which means he has the power and the strength to back up that name and title, even though he doesn't really have a title besides later on when he becomes the last king of Lendel, royal capital. And the third one is that he's a prominent character when it comes to ultimate loyalty in the face of rejection, but also defender of what he believed in and the kingdom that he was born into, but yet rejected. That in itself was prominent in his character, because let's think about it, he's an Omen. He wasn't birthed by a king. He has king's blood, he has royalty blood, but he was an Omen. So he was a king by merit, which means he was able to prove himself to that title and earn that title more than anything that was possible. But that who is Morgott is. Morgott's an expansive character, so I'm pretty sure I missed a few things, but that's who Morgott is. But let's talk about the mindset lessons you can learn from Morgott. The first one is self-discipline over recognition. And what I mean by self-discipline over recognition is that Morgott never sought fame, praise, or anything like that. Now you'd be thinking like, hey, you know, what do you mean by that? You know, some people seek fame and recognition, such as Godric, such as Radahn. Now, Radahn's a little different. He kind of like Radahn's a little different because he was kind of like molded into it, but he still has a reputation and it still has a symbol to live up to. So same thing with him. He worked in the shadows protecting the Golden Order, even when it despised him, even though he was an Omen, even though his mother shunned him away. Now his father was a little different, but could Godfrey really do something? We don't really know. He was really, really committed to this thing, and that was the first real life takeaway, that he was really committed to his principles even when he was unrecognized, and that was integrity. Sometimes you need integrity when it comes to a few things. Sometimes you need to commit even though no one's going to give you the recognition you need. Sometimes you need to put in the work in order to get something you want just for yourself. Being selfish, yes, Sometimes you can be selfish and sometimes you can be selfless. Both are the same thing. People like to say, oh, they're two different things, which they are, but they're two sides of the same coin. It really does not matter. They're both the same thing when it comes to a context like this. But being committed allows you to be more in your purpose, but also allows you to have strength in silence. And strength in silence is when things really pop off, when they need you at most, whatever that may be, for people you care about, for the people that care about you, for whatever that may be, for the work and the craft you're in. And when you need it, when you need strength the most, strength and silence will always be there. Let's take Morgott, for example. He was able to defend the capital, not once, but twice. He was able to prolong the shattering and stop the shattering for a decent amount of time with his sovereign alliance. So he was able to have a strength, even though he was an Omen, even though he was shunned by the Golden Lord, and even though his siblings are kind of like on the opposite end and were supposed to be stronger than him. That just goes to show that self-discipline over recognition is very, very powerful. The second thing we want to talk about is overcoming rejection and shame. Now, he never really fully overcome rejection, but he did use it as fuel. So he was almost there. His mindset, his character kind of stopped him from thinking about, he never thought of himself as worthy. So that's what really broke his mode. But he was able to understand that, this rejection and shame can be used as fuel. He even humbles himself with his rags. His rags was he kept his rags from the sewers, but he was able to use that as fuel. I'm pretty sure he had the power and the anger to back up his fuel, and then eventually he was able to do all these amazing feats as, for example, all these things we talked about before, but also that he was able to turn and block out the flame of chaos. So he was able to, hold down the fort, hold down the defenses of the flame of chaos, along with his brother Morgott, obviously, but he was down there as well, and he was able to play a big part too, in terms of blocking everything like that. For example, you defeat Morg, you try to open the path to the frenzy frame, and then it's blocked by Morgott, which means you got to go take out Morgott. And Morgott, it just goes to show that the things he does for everything possible. So he was able to use all his rejections, especially from his mother, and his shame of being an Omen to his own benefits, which means he was able to turn pain into power. When it comes to his character, being different doesn't mean less. It means that you're just different on a different path. But also, don't let society label you to define your destiny. And that's what it is too. Despite everything like that, he was able to define his destiny in a very opposite way than any Omen was possible, except for Morg, obviously, but that's his brother, so that's completely different. But, he was able to define himself in the greatest way possible. Last king of Lendel, the royal capital. I don't really know what to say anything else for this category. Then overcoming rejection and shame and using it as a power source is one of the greatest things you can do in this negative persona and this negative context. Third thing is that he was purpose driven, resilience. He had a resilience towards his purpose, and he was purpose driven. A double combination, a two-piece and a soda. It's just simply that he fought many different battles in many different categories, yet his purpose driven and his resilience backed them up. And that's what you need as well. Having these habits, these skills, these traits will back you up when you need it most. These doors won't open majority of the time, so there's two ways you can do it. One, have the skills to open the doors to these gateways and to these pathways to unlock these skills and traits. Second, break it down through brute force. Pretty self-explanatory. Now, what we can learn from this is that don't give up just because the outcome isn't guaranteed. Pretty self-explanatory, but this is what a negative context. Even though you're debuffed, even though you're in the negatives, you can still make a redemption arc, you can still pull back, and even when your outcome is not guaranteed, you should always never give up. Second is that loyalty to your values builds unshakable confidence, but also a humble experience of what it actually means to pursue these values. Morgott is a great example of that. And then lastly, sometimes you need to protect the vision of others you can't see yet. Did Morgott see the vision of the Golden Order? Most likely not. Later on, he probably did. But, he took it into his own hands, was able to protect the vision that eventually became his own vision. Now, that could be debated over lore context, but at the end of the day, Was it his own vision? Yes, to a certain degree. Next category we're going to talk about is power and strength. Just like how Godfrey had power and strength, he has as well. He inherited, but also was able to gain it through many different things, as we talked about before. But it was just more than combat. It was more than combat, just like Godfrey. It was more than combat. He had the mastery of unique abilities. For example, his Omen abilities. He was able to channel that, and he was able to use a curved sword that was made of his blood. So very unique mastery there. But he was able to channel being a lord, so lordship. He was able to have lordship. Crazy idea of an Omen becoming the king. He was able to do that. His true power in that context was using what was different about him to his own advantage, but also to prevail and allow for a different idea and a different path to come to be. So those things are insanely powerful. And not only that, he was able to master his weakness until it became his own strength. Now, if you fought him before, you would know he's insanely powerful. Be sure to understand that your weaknesses can become your strength. Now, you'll gain new weaknesses through that, but, improvement and development is greatly needed for a long journey, especially in life. Second one is that he was calculated aggression, just calculated aggression. He always had calculated aggression, especially through his Morgott persona. Calculated aggression towards people that would oppose him. He was able to pull a lot of these feats off through calculated aggression. In business or life, calculated aggression will be powerful, especially with intention. When you have powerful intentions behind your calculated aggression, you're able to pull off a power move that will have lasting effect. Having this sort of power allows you to have control in dangerous situations, and dangerous situations will always come around. So having some sort of control over some of them will make you way more stronger. It will make you way more of a greater leader, but also be more beneficial for you. Now we're going to talk about another category, which is business. And yes, business connects to Morgott very well, not only through his lordship. We already talked about this with Godfrey. So if you're interested about what lordship and everything like that could come with business, go check out the Godfrey video. We're going to talk about what exactly is the business that Morgott is running. There's many different things. For example, leadership. We talked about this when it comes to lordship, but also he's able to command a team. That's what I really want to talk about. His Knights Cavalry. He's able to command his team. And this is a pretty effective team. I'm pretty sure they've been around for a very long time. So a very effective team. What can you take from that? That I'm pretty sure these knights are the same knights that he officially recruited, or officially however the process came to be where the Knight Cavalry started. These are the same knights from all the way back then. So experience and longevity of a team can allow you to prevail in many different categories, but also be very effective and strong. So the two things you can take from that is longevity and experience. Those are part of the two things you want to focus on when it comes to a long timeline. Especially when it comes to business, you need to be able to extend that timeline as much as you can and have your team members follow you along, just like the Knights Cavalry. Yeah, Morgott is, well, for lack of a better words, an underdog. Many people who start business are underdogs. So like myself too. I was an underdog too. I was starting basically with my youth martial arts. I was able to use that as funding, all that, whatever that may be, and other things along the way. I have team members and stuff like that. So same thing, just like Morgott, I was able to basically start my own Knight Cavalry. Basically, he was an underdog, and you must understand that underdogs are going to have debuffs. Underdogs are going to be in the negatives. You're going to start from nothing, or you're going to be in the negatives, just like how Morgott was. Understand that. Once you understand that and you apply some of Morgott's traits, identities, and key habits and key takeaways, you will be able to prevail just like him and myself. And lastly, what I want to talk about when it comes to business is that you do not need to be in the main front line, the main image of the business in order for it to be successful. Pretty self-explanatory, but a lot of people when they start a business, especially start on, they think they need to be on the head front. No. A team could be in the head front, an identity could be in the head front, another person could be in the head front, but you do not need to be that main image, that main opposer of that business. Let's talk about the next category, which is few tips to be like Morgott in real life. I have 3 for you for this category, and it's just simply to master the power of silence. Not everything needs to be a reaction. Like I said before, the strength in silence. When you actually need it, when you need it most, it will come and help you. It will be there for you to use. And work in silence, let your results make the noise. Pretty self-explanatory. Let your work talk for yourself. Let your work show and shine through. Don't let your words basically disregard and demolish what you're building. And second is to stay loyal to your values. Pretty self-explanatory. Morgott stayed loyal to his values, even though he had a kind of a stigma and a kind of a negative aspect to it, but he did stay loyal to it and was able to stay loyal to the Erdtree. And like I said before, I talked about loyalty countless times in this video. It will help you and it will be provident. So just understand that as well. But the right people or the purpose will recognize you eventually. Like how we are doing this video. We're able to recognize Morgott for the person he was. Despite him being an antagonist in our story, or opponent in our story, he was being recognized by us. So yeah. And then lastly, turn weakness into weaponry. And just simply turning your weakness into a strength. Sure, new weaknesses will come, but if you're able to do that, your opponents will not be able to adapt to your old weaknesses and will have to adapt to your new weaknesses. This can be applied to anything possible, especially when it comes to a competitive setting, such as business, such as mixed martial arts, such as anything that requires some type of competition or some type of opponent to face you. Embrace what makes you different and develop skills around your scars.
The shattering ensued, a war that wrought only darkness. The Elden Ring was broken. But by whom? And why? What could the demigods ever hope to win by warring?